Hello, I'm Yusuf Aram, and welcome to this special edition of Straight Talk. I'm at the Turkish Arab Economic Forum here in Istanbul, a major platform that advances investment and trade between the Gulf and Turkey. Join me as I look into the opportunities that lie ahead as the Middle East encounters drastic changes. It's an annual gathering that brings together many of the key financial policymakers and stakeholders from the Gulf and Turkey. The 15th Türkiye-Arab Economic Forum kicked off in Istanbul on October 18th. This pivotal event isn't just about business. It's about fostering lasting partnerships and turning challenges into opportunities. Arab League Secretary General Ahmed Aboul Gheit highlighted the potential for Turkish-Arab trade to reach $150 billion annually, emphasizing that such a level of cooperation could reshape the region. I moderated a panel that focused on capitalizing on these geoeconomic opportunities.
Our program focuses on the strengthening of macroeconomics and the financial stability, maintaining the fiscal discipline, ensuring the price stability, and implementing the structural reforms to enhance the growth by improving the efficiency and the competitiveness.
The GCC countries have embarked on a major diversification agenda. And that opened up a lot of sectors and areas for investments, which attracted Turkish companies coming in, especially in areas like manufacturing, like construction. So that was a reason, a factor that led to some of that expansion.
How we are going to contribute to the economic integration of our countries, of course, first of all, contributing to the increasing trade and economic relations, and in building infrastructure, improving the transportation, energy, digital connectivity, and many other areas that may serve the common economic interest and the integration of the Turkic nation.
Turkish and Arab investors have a reputational advantage in Africa. In other words, Africans see you as good investors because you don't come with the same baggage that Europeans, Americans, or Chinese recently. And Uganda is a good example. Chinese contractors have been replaced progressively by Turkish contractors, including Yapi Merkez.
There's an interesting phenomena happening, obviously, since 2016 with the Saudi 2030 vision. Saudi has become a net exporter of capital and transformed itself into an importer of capital, and a lot of the companies are looking into investing in Saudi. But this interaction, I believe, is going to also provide resources for Saudi companies to invest outside of Saudis.
A main driver for Ankara in its rapprochement with Arab states was to attract more investment. With Mehmet Şimşek at the helm of Turkey's finance ministry, policies centered on market stabilization were implemented to attract investors, particularly from the Gulf. Companies like Globalturk Capital are courting investments and showing big returns. Its managing partner, Baris Oney, explained to me what opportunities Arab investors are looking for in Turkey. We're here on the sidelines of the Turkish Arab Economic Forum, and I'm joined by Baris Oney, Globalturk Capital managing partner. Thanks for joining me. Now, the war in Gaza, I know it's hard to separate geopolitics from finance. And has the conflict affected the investment environment in the region, in Turkey, throughout the Arab world?
Thank you, Yusuf. Well, it is a big tragedy what we're experiencing, obviously, in Gaza, and it hasn't affected that much, I would say. Investments have been happening in Turkey. We are receiving FDI to Turkey, not as it used to be some 5-6 years ago, but still, you know, specifically that regional conflict hasn't affected it much, I would say. It's in its normal pace. It's going on its normal pace. It could affect it if it goes more and more and it prolongates. We thought it was going to end much sooner than it is taking this much time. Right now, we are hearing from various different circles that it could go longer and longer. Obviously, if that happens, it's going to affect Turkey as well. Many investments could stay back and wait until the conflict ends. But in general, Turkey, in a region that we're living in, we've been facing these sorts of conflicts all the time.
In the post-Arab Spring era, where we're seeing now these normalizations amongst GCC members in Turkey and other GCC members as well, have you seen an increased appetite for bilateral investments?
We have indeed. For example, in 2022, FDI from the Middle East to Turkey was around $300 million. In 2023, it has increased to close to $1 billion, 3 times. So that is clearly a testament to the, you know, the ties becoming better, political ties becoming better. And Arab investors are looking to invest in various other geographies as well, other than their usual places. Most of this capital came from the GCC countries, especially from the UAE and Qatar. Saudi and Egypt, for example, 2 other big countries in the region. We haven't seen much coming in from those countries, but GCC has obviously increased their investments to Turkey.
What type of investments are Arab investors eyeing in Turkey, and what's the biggest challenges they face?
The challenge is that Turkey is a very sophisticated market when compared to investing in the Arab region for Arab investors. There are cultural barriers, language barriers as normal barriers, but other than that, the types of industries are a bit different. Arab investors historically like to invest in real estate, construction projects, infra projects, whereas the Turkish business community is more manufacturing, services, those types, and technology, healthcare type of services are present in Turkey. So there's kind of differences in the sectors, but it is closing. This gap is closing, especially with Saudi 2030 vision that Saudi has, you know, launched a few years ago to invest in non-oil private sector investments in the Saudi. So this will make, I think, the Arab investors also knowledgeable in investing in non-oil, non-real estate type companies. I think because of this also, we will be seeing more and more investments from the GCC countries into Turkey in the coming years.
I also want to talk about the other avenue of investment, Turkish investors looking at the Arab world. Now, you mentioned Vision 2030 in Saudi Arabia. Is that something that's catching the attention of Turkish investors where they're like, I need to be in this project, or is the UAE or other countries more attractive for Turkish investors?
Turkish investors in the Middle East have historically had construction background. We see a lot of large construction companies constructing, you know, big real estate projects, infrastructure projects. They have been very active in that region, and they are still going on. What we're not seeing in that region is Turkish manufacturing companies going into that region, or Turkish banks, for example, or financial institutions going into Middle East. But in 2022 to 2024, in the last 18 months, I would say, because of the macro situation in Turkey, we have seen manufacturing companies going to countries like Egypt in big numbers to to diversify their risks in terms of currency, in terms of interest rates, in terms of inflation. So that has triggered some manufacturing companies to move some of their facilities into some countries. I think this would become a trend until we get the inflation under control. As Mehmet Şimşek has been saying, it will take some 1 or 2 years to really get it down to like single-digit figures. But once that happens, then we will see some balancing. Arab investors, if they invest into Turkish manufacturing companies, they can transfer not only know-how, but also a lot of wealth being transferred to their countries as well. So I think this trend will continue.
Following the Arab Spring, Turkey and many Arab states saw years of polarization. But starting in 2022, a wave of normalization not only improved the geopolitical climate, but also supported an increase in bilateral trade and investment. The World Bank's GCC director, Safaa El-Kogali, told me about the key factors that have driven successful economic partnerships between Turkey and the GCC. Safaa El-Kogali, GCC director for the World Bank, thanks for joining me now. When we're looking at the region, Turkey and the GCC, there's a lot of cooperation, economic cooperation, investment cooperation. What are the key drivers behind the success of this type of cooperation, collaboration?
So first, let me start by highlighting the fact that over the last decade or so, there's been a significant increase in what I would call partnerships in terms of trade between the Arab world and Turkey. In the GCC, which is the region that I am covering, we've seen almost a doubling of collaboration in trade between the two, between the region and Turkey. For example, in Saudi Arabia in 2022, it was around $6 billion, and is expected to reach almost 30 billion in the medium to long term. UAE, which has the biggest collaboration with Turkey, is currently, or in 2023, around 15 billion, and expected to reach 40 billion. So there has been growth, significant growth over the past decade. And I would say probably 3 factors are attributed to the success of this relationship. First, I think the whole agenda around diversification in the GCC. This opened up opportunities and markets for Turkish companies to come in, especially in the construction sector. But also, I think in terms of Turkey's geographic location, being sort of at the front of Europe and Asia, that allowed for energy collaboration between the GCC and Turkey. And then the third area for me is really the trade agreements that were formed recently, the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement in the UAE, and there's also one that's in the making now between the GCC and Turkey. These helped actually establish certain non-tariff barriers, opening up access, looking at different sectors. So I think this is what helped the countries sort of work together, and hopefully this lays the foundations for future collaboration.
So how can they enhance what's already there, especially in terms of investment and growth, also future collaborations as well? What's the next step for this type of cooperation?
So I think it's important to look at the global mega trends and where the world is going and find the economic opportunities within that. So with innovation, with areas around climate change, green energy, renewable energy, these are the areas that I think moving forward countries need to look at and collaborate. GCC Arab world with Turkey, but generally regional partnerships around these emerging trends become very important. Areas around digital development, which now the whole world is experiencing AI and companies are trying to adapt to that, would be areas, for example, that these countries can work on. But what's important, Yusuf, is to leverage what each of these countries have in terms of wealth, in terms of experience, and build on that and move forward in ensuring that they have agreements that capitalize on what can be and not only what has been.
You mentioned climate change. Now, obviously, every country in this region has their own green initiatives, their own net zero targets. What type of opportunities is that creating from an investment perspective?
Huge, right? Because I think the transition to non-oil requires a focus on minerals, and as there's basically, it's estimated that in the next 20 years, the demand for minerals will be fourfold. Right, so I think what's happening is it's creating new sectors, new engagements. The GCC is committed to the net zero agenda, and they themselves are trying to build, and in fact there's impressive work being done in Saudi Arabia and UAE. And Turkey, on the other hand, has technological solutions. They've been in this space, so working together could accelerate getting to those targets.
It's always been geopolitically a turbulent region. How do you assess risk from a security perspective when you're making calculations? And going forward, is that less of a concern, you think?
I think we live in what they call a VUCA world, right? So it's volatile, it's unpredictable, it's complex, and it's ambiguous. And we have to keep that in mind in thinking about the future. Risk will always be there, but understanding what that risk is and identifying economic opportunities within that risk, I think becomes important because it would actually contribute to reducing the risk. Let me give you an example. With all now in Europe and a lot of the policies to try and reduce carbon footprint, some of the small and medium enterprises will find it difficult to access these markets. And so if in advance countries will help them mitigate those risks, then it's a win-win for everybody. And it's not just a regional win, it's also a global win. And so I think we have to learn to live in such a VUCA world.
One last question, especially during this period right now, we're seeing multiple transportation projects. For example, Development Road in Iraq, for example, the India-Middle East corridor being presented, Turkey developing the middle corridor along with Central Asian nations. So this seems to be a very important theme as tomorrow's trade routes are being built today. How do you view that from a World Bank perspective, and how should sovereigns view that with these new types of trade routes? Is this something that they need to be in on? And will that change the dynamics? For example, say Suez Canal that has been tremendously important in the past, will its importance be downgraded?
So we at the World Bank are actually, we encourage partnerships. We think regional integration, regional cooperation is absolutely necessary for global development. No one nation can do it on their own. No one entity can do it on their own. And so by coming together, I think would become very important. What we try to do to help a lot of these countries is analyze where are the risks, where are the opportunities, and advise them on that. In fact, my role in the GCC is advisory mostly, where we do those sorts of analyses and assessments. And when it comes to the transport sector, mobility becomes very important for economic development. And so mobility of goods, mobility of people, mobility of services. And so we do support the transport sector in a lot of those countries that you've mentioned, but it becomes how you support them to maximize on the opportunities and address the risks that are there.
The Gulf isn't the only region Turkey sees as a source of capital and investment. The Organization of Turkic States, founded in 2009, has evolved into a major regional platform for the nearly 200 million Turkic speakers spread across Eurasia. Turkic states are also looking for investment partners and opportunities, particularly in the Gulf as well. Earlier this year, the Turkic Investment Fund was launched to help raise capital for both private and public ventures. Baghdad Amreyev, the president of the fund, explained to me how important it was for the Turkic and Arab world to work together when it came to investing. Here on the sidelines of the Turkish Arab Economic Forum, I ran into a familiar face, the president of the Turkic Investment Fund, a newly formed fund. Can you tell us a little about what the fund's activities are?
You know that this year our Turkic nation celebrated 15th anniversary of the establishment of the first Turkic political organization. Our leaders, 2022, 2 years ago, they decided to establish a common financial institution, first common financial institution of the Turkic world, Turkic Investment Fund. During this period, we have worked hard to finalize all the legal and procedural issues and the requirements. And this year, this fund, after the first inaugural meeting of Board of Governors, the 18th of May, became functional. Turkic Investment Fund is aimed to serve the Turkic economic integration. Phase by phase, of course. First of all, this fund will contribute to the development of economic relations between our states. Then also it will contribute to the economic development of each nation, and as a final target, it should be very important instrument and tool for the economic integration of the Turkic world and between Turkey.
Are there specific opportunities you're looking at in the Arab world or in Turkey for investment?
Yes, of course. Apart from our activities in the Turkic world, we also looking forward to new opportunities on the regional level. We are communicating with existing financial institutions in this region and the Arab world as well. Recently, we had very productive consultations and negotiations with the Arab Coordination Group, you know, Saudi Investment Fund, Abu Dhabi Investment Fund, Qatar Fund, Kuwait Development Fund, and Islamic Development Bank and OPEC Fund are among members of the Arab Coordination Group. And in Astana, in the capital of Kazakhstan, we had a very productive meeting and we agreed on cooperation between the Turkish Investment Fund and Arab funds in co-financing the projects in our member states.
What type of strategic sectors are you looking at for investment? What infrastructure, or is it health, defense? Do you have a specific one or two sectors that really interest you?
Our priorities are projects that can serve the economic integration of our states. Of course, starting from SMEs to big infrastructure projects. So we are going to support small and medium-sized entrepreneurship, finance joint projects between companies in our member states, and also we will be participating with governments and other financial institutions in financing big infrastructure projects, in the transportation sphere, and also in energy sphere. So all the projects that will serve the economic integration of the Turkic world.
You're the former president of the Organization of Turkic States, so you have a very good geopolitical understanding of what the Central Asian nations are looking for. And today, the Secretary General of the Arab League was here as well. How is the relationship between Organization of Turkic States and Arab League, and bilaterally between Turkic states and Arab states?
Yes, Mr. Ahmed Aboul Gheit is my old friend. When I was ambassador in Egypt, he used to be the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Egypt. Later, when I was Secretary General of the Organization of Turkic States, we also met many times and discussed the ways of cooperation between the Arab League and the Organization of Turkic States. And we have very good level of consultations. We exchange views on very important topics in the regional and world politics. This kind of constructive cooperation reflects the very constructive relations between the Arab states and Turkic countries. Today's event demonstrated that Turkey and Arab countries are moving toward better relations. It is very good also for our Turkic states. Also, Central Asian Turkic states and Azerbaijan have excellent relations with the Arab states, especially with the Gulf countries. So this is complementing each other. Today's meeting, I think that will be one of the turning point in further improving relations between the Arab world and the Turkic world.
President of the Turkic Investment Fund, Baghdad Amreyev, thank you for joining me. I'm Yusuf Araman. You've been watching a special edition of Straight Talk.